with those and really prepare and review on that section, okay? All right. It must be loud. As we look at this, we've noticed that we have a picture. Remember this picture? We've got a population here, and we notice that this is a triangle. We call that a convenient sample, right? And we have this thing called a voluntary sample. Why are those not clouds? Good, it's not representative of the population, right? So that's why we don't put it in as a cloud. But an SRS is, if we do it appropriately, a representation of our population, and that's why we sample appropriately using our SRS, right? Couple things to note. When you're doing this, be very specific on an FRQ. Things like labeling, things like randomizing, right? Don't just say, I'm going to randomly select 200. Tell me how. How are you going to randomly select 200 and then go from there? There's no wrong answer on that. There's 100 ways you could say it, but make sure you explain it. And then also make sure you tell me how you select. Things like ignoring repeats, if you're using a random digit table or something along those lines, is something you need to state there, okay? All right.
Okay. Did you podcast?
I am. I'm podcasting now. Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
We can say hi.
How you doing?
Beyonce, do you want to give a little shout out to anybody special in your life?
Shout out to my mom and my terrible AP stat teacher.
Whoa!
Oh,
Wow!
I was about to say, oh, because
I
it's your
think-
mom,
I
but
think
then you
it's
hit him with that.
4 points.
Wow. Well then,
That's a very specific number.
I don't even know how
I
to
love
continue,
this.
but I will.
What is the triangle?
Yeah, she
This right here is called a convenient sample. That's something that's here and here. Both of those, I put them as a triangle in a box because they're not representative of the cloud, which is the population. What is a convenient sample? Well, let me do this. Let me give you context, okay? So we're going to try to figure out what proportion of students at GAC ride the bus, okay? So that's kind of what we're doing. That's our population. Let's pretend that if we were going to do a convenient sample, what would be a convenient sample that we could use to sample the population that's there?
Like for who gets on the bus?
Yeah.
Just like stand in front of the bus, right? Just like, or no.
Like if we were in chapel and well, that's probably a bad idea. Like if we have like a group of people and we're like trying to sample them, right?
Oh, you could just like go to like a middle school chapel as a convenience thing. Is that as they all walk out, probably all of them are gonna ride the bus because it's a middle school chapel.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. That's one for sure. I would say that. That's good. So we could say middle school chapel and as they leave, right? Another example would be like, okay, stand if you ride the bus. Oh, that's the proportion. That's convenient sample, right? Not really selecting. It's more just, hey, it's more convenient. What's a voluntary?
It's when you send out a survey and ask people to answer.
Yeah, it's more by personal choice, right? How many of you think that you had voluntary response bias within your study? Probably some of you did, right? Right? Some of you went to your friends and said, hey, you want to participate in this, right? That's voluntary, right? Now, if there was some, I know that it's a little different, right, because you're in this context, but it's a voluntary sample. So I would say something like it's choosing, right? So choosing to be a part. Okay, that's probably what I would say for that. What's an SRS? Well, we said it's representative of the population. Representative of the population. All right. How to do an SRS? Okay, we've got that. We did that there. All right, let's go down below. Down here, what's under coverage? If I have something that's under coverage, what is that?
You don't have enough responses.
Yeah, not a lot of responses, right? So I would put that. Not a lot of responses. And then it also can misrepresent what? Yeah, that's exactly right. Misrepresent the population. And again, if you have questions on some of this, let me know, because I know it's kind of the way it's set up there. What's non-response? We know that. Morgan?
Would undercoverage be if you use a convenient sample because it's not representing the population, right?
That's correct. Absolutely. Depending upon under coverage is, hey, we really don't get a whole lot of data from that, right? But it could be related to these up here. That's a really good point. Really good point. Morgan, what about non-response bias? What would that be?
When you don't get responses.
Yeah, that's exactly right. People don't respond. What's the biggest form of this?
So like,
Like if you email.
Survey. That's good.
Yeah,
or
Email. Yeah, email survey. This is really good.
Home
People call you.
landlines.
Yeah, I don't know how that the data that they get from phones nowadays. I'm like, how is that
Facebook.
even accurate? Morgan.
back to undercoverage.
Sure.
Like when you say it doesn't have a lot of responses, is that just that it like doesn't meet the like large counts condition or something?
I think that could be part of it for sure. These biases basically relate to one of these two. I think you said that earlier.
Okay.
You're exactly right. So these are the type of ways we sample. This is the bias that comes from these,
Okay.
or could come from these. Ella?
So can I understand the under coverage of if we survey people who have email address but not include people who do not have an email thing, that's like under coverage.
That's exactly right.
We
That's okay.
underestimate.
Correct. Underestimate the population. That's exactly right. Because they don't have a landline, right? Are you just the people that have a landline? Are you undercovering, or is there undercoverage that's there? Absolutely. Because if I'm not sampling the people that don't have one, is that representing the population? Probably not, right? So yeah, I would say that's absolutely right with how you said that. And response bias, what's that?
That's when
This is what's happening in this class.
Tell
Right
them
now.
why.
Lie. That's exactly
Think
right.
I'm lying, Coach Jay? That's what's
Lie,
happening.
cheat,
Yeah, me.
steal.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm on
Exactly
Maddie's
right.
team. You can look at me too.
So
I
Here you
don't
are.
understand the word about it.
lie. So right now, maybe we should change our names to response bias. Huh?
Oh.
Maybe
man.
they should. Maybe they should.
So what
Yes, ma'am.
there's
Oh, hey, Max. That's your mom.
Oh,
Yeah. All right. Look right here for the stratified versus cluster.
Can we talk about sampling bias, like just the bias, other kind of bias in general?
Other kinds of bias.
Yeah, I have it on my little saying right there. Like, there are like sampling bias. Is sampling bias just not a good sampling way to represent a population?
These are just sampling issues. Yeah. So sampling biases are okay. So we sample, right? The way we sample, there's specific problems that come into play. Now, remember that it's impossible to eliminate all bias. Remember that. Okay. When you do something, there are problems within every study. That's why when you did your study, when I said it, tell me what are the issues that are there. When you sample all of GAC, can you extend that conclusion to everyone within Gwinnett County? No, right? So there may be, depending upon how I sample, some undercoverage, which means that I'm not hitting everyone within my population. There may be non-response, people just don't respond. And there may be response bias where people lie.
Okay. Look it up.
Okay, so yes. Does that make sense? But it's all related to how I sample. Okay, I could still get a good sample, but still have a little of this going on, possibly. Okay. All right, real quick, this right here, I feel like I made this picture a little bit better with cluster and stratified. Are we starting to get cluster and stratified
Yeah.
a little bit better?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so we got our mini clouds right here. Remember, what would this picture represent?
Cluster.
Cluster, good. Because we take everyone within that cloud and we use that as our SRS, right? Whereas stratified, if you think of this as like a huge cloud, okay? So this is the whole population. We divide it up into specific like sections in that cloud, and then we take an SRS of each part to make what we're sampling. I don't know if that helps at all, but I don't know if that makes it a little different. But this would be stratified over here, and then up here this would be cluster. Okay. All right. So question, and I think I want to make sure I hit all this. I think there's one more thing. How do I know what I stratify? Meaning, how do I know what I section each group off to then sample from each of those? Morgan?
Wait, I have a question about stratified.
Go ahead.
So, do you take like one of those? No. You take one of those whole clusters and sample it, I mean, like one whole
You take
strata.
a SRS of each.
You take an SRS in each one.
Correct.
Okay.
So let's say right here we take 50 here, 50 here, 50 here, 50 here, right? To make 200. Over here in cluster, we would take let's say 100 are in each cluster. I take 2 clusters and sample everyone in that cluster. Correct. Okay. That's the difference between the two there. So yeah, go ahead, Maddie. You got something?
Yeah. So you have to find one distinct trait that can't be like. I just had it in my head. Sorry, I was wrong there. They have to be separated by like distinct traits that can't be like that like one person can't have two.
Okay, this is a good
Like
question.
A freshman can't be a sophomore.
Good. Okay, so with our illustration of driving or riding the bus, okay, do I stratify by freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, or do I stratify by male and females?
Freshman,
Freshman,
sophomore.
sophomore.
Why?
Because the older people won't ride the bus as much as the younger people, right?
I would
It's
say
not a gender thing; it's an age thing.
Bingo. Bingo, bingo, bingo. That's good. So right here, this is key, right here. Just to kind of have in the back of your mind, you don't have to memorize it, but we use the variable that has the highest impact on the results, or the projected highest impact on the results, just like James said. So it's not really a gender thing, it's more of an age thing, right? People can drive compared to people that don't drive, right?
Word.
And that's exactly right. Right.
Worst driver.
I know. Word.
Good answer.
Right on. Questions on this? Are we good? You're rocking today. Matthew Wong, Beyonce. Rocking. Okay, we're moving from lying to now the second section, section 3.2. Section 3.2. This will be our last one. I probably won't finish it before lunch, but that's okay. We'll come back, finish it, and then go to something a little different. This is the last one on chapter 3. This time we're going to talk about more or less the experimental design. So what we talked about before was what? Observational. You might want to make a note of that. What we just talked about was all observational. Now we're going to move into World 2, which is our experimental design, okay? Now on the top here, just for context, I want you to think about the scenario of if we were to see for our review whether an online course or a review book would be better in terms of improving the grades of students, okay? So what we did is we're going to have an experiment where some would take the online course and some would do just simply a review book. Now the picture of this is we have an explanatory and we have a response, similar to what? We kind of talked about that with what?
Our biases.
Correlation, the graphs, the X is the explanatory and the Y is the response.
Great, Maddie. Yeah, that would be the same idea, right?
That's
Except
what
we're
I
not
was
talking about a scatter plot. We're doing an experiment based on a random sample we'll do here. But what our explanatory is the type of review. The response is AP scores, all right? Now question, can I prove causation here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I prove causation? So
Wait.
question. All right, scenario. I've got 100 people. I decide that I'm going to simply observe what they use. Some of them will use the online. Some of them will use the review book. I get all that information. The ones that used the online got 4.3. The ones that did the review book were 3.8. Can I prove causation in that scenario? No. Why?
You only observe them. There's no control group.
Right. No control group means no causation. Got me? Now, can I provide a conclusion for this? Possibly, yeah. Yeah, but I can't say causation, all right? All right, we're going to start right off here when we come back, and then we'll go from there, okay?
Wait, question.
Yes, ma'am.
Every experimental study will have a cause and effect relationship.
Correct. But what I stated right there, is I did not state an experiment, right?
But you have separated them randomly into 2 different groups. So it's giving them treatments.
I didn't say random. I just said if I came into class and I just said, I just looked and saw who did the online, who did the review book, and then I took their scores.
But if you randomly assign them into the 2 treatment groups, that would be causation.
Correct. Bingo. Because now what am I doing? I'm putting a treatment and a control group on what's occurring, right? Or I'm comparing 2 different variables. Yes.
I have a 0 in for the Barron's practice testing. I turned it in. It was turned in like late, but I turned it in. So I don't know.
You want to look at it real quick?
Oh, I turned it online.
Did it online? Perfect.
Yeah, I did. I took like a picture of it and like the date Sorry.
Maybe because
Alright,
it was
hang on,
late,
hang on.
I probably just didn't look
I
at
have
it
it
again.
Hang on.
Do that. Turn it on the
Here,
left
I'll
side,
let you
and I'll
pick,
give
I'll
you
let you
full credit on that because I know I was pretty lenient on the schedule because of prom and all that stuff. So.
Okay.
What?
Huh?
Okay, let me add some background information. No, million.
And so,
Like $1 million.
projects, so guess when you do any.
Oh,
Yeah.
What you sent me is completely fine. I'm worried a little bit. The worry that I have is now time. Because now we should have had our data like 2 months ago. And now we have like 3 days still to do. So it's possible that you could do it. It's just making sure that it's random and that you do it appropriately with a short deadline. I would say we gotta start like today to like get that done. I'm fine with you doing it, but we need to start moving towards that. Cool?
We get ready.
And do you think like if I choose like the people just at lunch, would that be like random too? Because since it's like
No,
the
it's
school
okay.
random class.
I would say that different days is huge. Different lunch periods, different classes. You know, that's huge. I would say that that's how I would approach it there on that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I would say how you randomly select. If I just went up and just was at the front of the lunchroom and just was like you. I don't know if that will be. I don't know if that'd be random.
So
That
I
makes
should
sense?
just like pick from different like places, right? Since I want to just do like the gender
No.
with like comparing to the uniform scholar. Like if is there a preference
I was gonna hit you.
of
but
each
you moved.
Gotcha. So what I mean, since it's an observational study, you're gonna try to see.
Oh my god.
Um,
Well, no.
if you wanted to do in the lunchroom, that's fine. One of your
Oh, yeah,
problems
that's
would be the fact that it wasn't random. Does that make sense? And if because you will have to, the ideal thing was that you would do it throughout the course of different days throughout the year to see and compare.
Nope.
That's
Come on, go off the screen, man.
So do you think like I should do it on at least how many
That's
days
into one.
or
Oh.
at least how many students?
I hit one. Oh, come on.
Yeah, you could go kind of either way.
I tried to
I'm
jump
trying to think of something that you can do because we don't really have very long at this
Oh, behind
point.
the back, give me that.
Let's
go.
I would say try to look and see what you could do with that. You know,
Yes.
my
Oh,
biggest
yeah,
thing
yeah,
at
I
this
got
point
that one.
right now, like for instance, my whole thing. If you were to ask me at the beginning of the year on that
You
question,
can't play that.
my whole thing is I would say, why would you want to know that? You know, what does that do to help us, right? And I don't know if it's as much something as that as you're just trying to just see, right? So maybe your question could relate to what are the shirts that the Spartan store should carry,
Yes.
or that would work if you were trying to use that information going forward. Just the way you randomly sample and the way you do that, if you end up just kind of conveniently doing that where it's just more for your convenience, you might want to say that we actually would be more of a convenient sample that was there that we talked about. But you would say that as far as the problems in your study that you would fix next time. Does that help you?
Yes, that does. So I should just collect as much as raw data right now as possible and then choosing what I can use. Would that be helpful?
That would be, I would say use as much data as you possibly can. So if you go up there, just sample as many people as you possibly can and then use that data accordingly.
Yes,
Okay?
we'll do that.
Alright, right on.
Thank you.
Got a good look coming off the screen, but you did it. Come off the screen.
3, 2, 1.
Way too high.
That's disappointing. You hit the shot clock.
2, 1.
Oh.
You gotta hit. It's
One.
over the screen. That's what you
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
hit.
Oh.
Hit over the screen. 3, 2, 1. On the way out.
On the way up.
Oh.
Y'all gotta get one of these for y'all's dorm. Y'all are addicted.
Oh, I have
Need a
one.
shot.
I have one in my house. It's pretty
Yeah,
nice. It's
I'm
like
gonna
a
take
thing.
shots before I leave.
Got it. Come on, Long.
I'm making a shot. Call the clock. Call the clock.
3, 2, 1.
Oh!
I think everything. 3, 2, 1. Oh my god.
So close.
No, that's not a good shot. 3, 2, 1. Swat that short.
I'm doing a different move now.
3, 2, 1. Oh, I was wet. I was wet.
And it's
Hang on, I gotta make one. I gotta make one. I
Shot.
gotta make one real quick. Can you make a free throw? Nice. Let's go.
enough. But when I made it, they threw it over one bite. But
play today, right?
The Bruins play today and the Celtics play tomorrow. They're both at home, so they can't play on the same day.
Gotcha. Ooh, I didn't even think about that.
So the Celtics got an extra day off, which hopefully that means that Jaylen Brown will be back for game 2. But they just announced that he's doubtful again, which is weird. He said he was trying to play, but I don't
Did you ever
know.
see him play at Wheeler?
I did not. I didn't get to see him play at Wheeler. I was over at North Gwinnett, so I wasn't there. I was like, I had no reason to like go out there. I wish I had though.
Such a good player. So good.
Who?
Jaylen Brown.
I don't know.
I always thought though he should have stayed in school when we were here.
Well, yeah, that was the knock on him was that he could never shoot, and then all of a sudden this year he comes out shooting 40% from 3.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, he wasn't that impressive last year either. He was like we could tell that he was athletic, but he couldn't shoot.
It's not enough just to be athletic in the game.
Yeah,
Gotta have something else.
that's good. The king of basketball, the greatest to ever hit the court.
Michael Jordan's the
The
no.
Jay. He's not the greatest winner. He's the greatest basketball player in terms
I
of
think
skill.
but
In terms of skill, he's the greatest
yes, I
basketball
think he's the most skilled basketball player of all time.
player to ever play.
But I feel
You didn't ever watch Jordan, did you?
He's more skilled than Jordan. He can't win like Jordan.
I think
He doesn't know how to
LeBron
win
is
like
the
Jordan.
most skilled player of all
But
time.
his skill in basketball,
Yeah,
the
I think-
things he can do on the court is better than Jordan. He can't win like Jordan.
Yeah, but he's not. Yeah, he's not.
Jordan can't pass. LeBron, arguably top 5 passer of all time.
Yeah, there's nothing LeBron can't do. Like there's, I mean,
He
there's
can
other
shoot
MJ
the
can
three
do
better.
everything too. But
He
like,
can drive better, dunk better, shoot the 3 better,
He's
pass
big-
better,
he's
rebound
bigger.
better. He
Hold
can
on.
do everything better. He can do everything better.
No. Shoot better?
no,
He shot 30. He shoots
Trash.
34%.
Trash. No,
He
no,
shoots
no.
33% from the 3.
That's
Of his career.
trash for
Michael shoots 29% from the
yeah,
3.
Michael was never that good of a shooter either. I don't think
his pull-up jumper.
his pull jumper was like, excellent. But so
Good
again, so was
point.
LeBron's. I feel like I can watch.
That was LeBron. Okay.
I can watch Cavs games and LeBron is like hitting fadeaway jumpers like all over the
Yeah.
place.
Michael can shoot mid-range better. He can't shoot 3s better. Can't shoot 3s better.
LeBron has that same factor where it's like if he shoots the ball, I just feel like it's going in.
Yeah.
Like I don't care where it's from. He
LeBron?
can be, LeBron.
He's
He can-
okay.
He can just be
Maybe not that
shooting.
great.
He can be shooting above the break threes. I'm like, that's going in.
Like, he's
Just
not-
because it's LeBron.
you never know when
Well-
it's going to go in or not. Like, if Dwight Howard shoots a 3, you know it's not going in. You can't
He's
take
made
that.
one. He's made one. Don't.
You can't take that chance with LeBron.
You don't. Yeah, they don't. Just the fact that he can guard him out there. Although
Yeah.
he seems to get to that spot right above the break, right about like if this is. It's like a little bit.
Right in
like,
the front.
he shoots it every time. I'm like, have we
And then
not
he does-
learned? Have we not learned that he takes this for all of his
And
games?
then he does, like, he goes in the middle of the 3-point line. He
Yes.
does a couple dribbles, then
Yep.
he does a side step.
Yes,
And
he
then
does it
fade
every
three.
time. I don't understand how the
And it
Pacers.
doesn't go in.
He did
Stop
it-
shooting that.
He hit it against the Pacers. I'm like,
Yeah.
guys,
He's
he's been
like
hitting this
this.
shot. He's been hitting this shot for years.
And he's like that. And then,
Then he
ooh.
hits it.
Wow.
So here's the deal. Best basketball player of all time.
Best,
Michael
Michael Jordan.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Most skilled,
I feel LeBron.
most skilled is LeBron. Best
Best is Michael Jordan.
player.
Okay, I don't know about when you say best skilled, and maybe this
Who
is
got
just
the
my
most
terminology.
skill and basketball
When you say
IQ.
the best all-around player, I would agree. Like in terms of all of the
all the
qualities.
things
Yes.
that they can do,
I
and
would
their
say
IQ,
LeBron.
what they,
Yep.
how they lead the floor.
But LeBron and Jordan are just two different people.
Yeah, but you can't compare LeBron to anyone else but Jordan. He's that good. You can't compare him to anyone but Jordan. But also, they're so different.
Jordan's, or,
It's
LeBron,
like,
I always viewed LeBron as like a forward.
because he
Kind
is
of like
like
Yeah.
just because of how he attacks
He
it.
is, but also he can play the point. As he played the point for Pacers.
I agree with you.
Started the point guard.
Well, we don't have-
Michael, are you a basketball fan?
He's a
Not
tennis
really.
star.
Emily,
We
are you a
had
basketball
Jerry
fan?
at the first semester.
What is the sport that do you have a sport that y'all like are like? This is my.
No.
Oh.
Not really.
Michael
Yeah.
was
Oh,
a tennis
yeah.
star. He was a
Wait.
tennis star for a little bit.
Go outside. It feels so good. Yeah, it feels so good
I
outside.
know. Can we have class outside?
Tell you what, here's what we'll do. You know when we do the FRQ and I give like 12 minutes to do it,
Uh-huh.
I'll allow you in groups to do it outside. Is that cool? Is that cool? I can do that.
And
I just need to hit this before we get to
I was
it.
That was a legendary block.
You want to trouble?
Yeah, it was free.
Yeah.
Alright, we gotta film Matthew in here too.
For what?
I told him I would.
Okay.
What do I say, Matthew?
You wake me up and you say, you fell asleep in class again.
Feels so good outside.
Wait, should I? Who's gonna record it? Okay.
I don't remember.
Is this for the Friday chapel?
Yeah.
Last Friday chapel.
Farts?
So am I just teaching and then I go and just say that to you?
Like the class is over, so the class is
Right.
starting.
Okay. Okay.
Is there a belt
Alright,
in
if
the
I
Wednesday?
miss this, I'm graduating.
No, I don't think so.
Why do you
Yeah,
have
you have to
cold?
edit
Why
it
do you
out.
say cold?
Did you do that, Coach J? If I miss this, I'm
Oh my
graduating.
God, you know,
I'm graduating.
Wow. If I get this, James, you have to wear your school uniform for the first week of college.
Oh, here,
Oh!
here. I'll take.
Am I gonna have to like send you pictures
I'll
as
make
proof
I'll
of like
make,
I
I'll
actually
make
did
it. You
it?
have to wear it to school.
Yeah, you have to wear it. You
Okay.
have to wear it.
Oh!
Here, also,
Okay.
I'm gonna shoot from right there, and if he makes it, he has to wear the school.
I get
uniform.
redemption.
He has
if
to wear
you
the
make
school
it.
uniform one day next week.
Alright.
Okay.
Well, I'll take yours, but I get redemption after you if you make it.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh!
Alright, man.
He
Alright,
knows.
alright, hang on, hang on.
He's good at these shots.
I gotta make this. I gotta make this.
Coach,
That's
dude,
not-
it sounded like you said something else there instead of man.
What I?
He said you go man, but it sounded like you said something else.
Oh, yeah.
Alright.
Oh.
Coach is wearing a uniform next week. Call him.
Uniform!
No, I didn't get it there.
That was way short.
I didn't get it there. It's online.
Okay, hey, let's do this. Let's get this filmed real quick because I want to. If y'all could get a seat, we're gonna help Matthew out real quick with this chapel video,
I'm gonna make the second
and
one.
then we gotta continue and I want to go outside.
Oh, we get freaking booked.
All right, will this be pretty quick, Matthew?
All you have to do is just wake him up when he's sleeping.
Okay.
I'd try.
All right, here we go. This good?
I'm done.
What did I say, Matthew? You slept again?
Yeah.
Bye, Crystal.
Boom.
Got it. On a
Catch
roll.
it.
One.
Ready?
Matthew.
Oh.
I think your camera
Crystal just about
Are you just like sleeping in different teachers' classes?
Matthew, wake up, wake up. You slept in class again.
Okay.
What's that for?
It's the chapel Friday.
5:15.
Yeah.
This video
The
is
last one ever pulled for us.
I've seen it, yes. It's so good.
You've already seen it?
Because
They showed me because I ended it in a couple of
like seniors will be gone.
Yeah. Last one for us.
I've never been in a.
Oh,
it's actually like a really
yeah.
Like of the
Really?
school.
Yeah.
Never.
You switched
Can I do it again?
No, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Long
It's
time
okay.
spending like
Camera's not working.
I'm a little camera shy.
It's not working right now?
No, this is my phone.
Gotcha.
Worst driver.
Special eating gravy.
Do it again.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do this one more time, and then we're gonna start and continue. Well, actually, continue what I have behind me. All right, so I'm gonna video this real quick.
What are we
Video.
doing?
You wanna do it now?
Yeah.
Is that cool?
I'll video.
Sweet.
Yeah, Morgan. What am I doing? Right on set. No,
Same.
mine
I
right
think
here.
right there, and then just.
Final.
1, 2, 3.
Matthew, wake up again, man! You slept in class again. What's up with that? And cut. That was back to my Mr. Tumnus days.
Mr. Top, you are such a good
Mr.
actor.
Tumnus days. We used to do that back in that
I
class.
know,
We were
like
like,
little angle I started doing like this.
Yeah, we got Spielberg and Leonardo
I learned that from
DiCaprio.
Evan's win.
you know what about me? Don't be careful.
Stay the
I have my camera.
Put on that guy.
All right. Hey, let's do this. Let's continue. We got this. Just a couple more notes, and then we'll take a breather. Okay. We were talking really quick about the picture here. Did we get? I think we got to hear confounding variables, right? What's a confounding variable?
It's a variable that confines your experiment.
Yeah. So it's a. What'd you say, James?
A variable that confines your experiment.
That's very intuitive. Yes,
Yeah.
this is good. A lurking variable is something that's affecting the results, right? Is it bad to have lurking variables?
Yes.
Yes. Is it possible to eliminate all lurking variables?
No.
No. What's one way that we help eliminate some of the lurking variables?
By checking the condition.
Large sample size.
Okay, large sample size is part of it. That's not what I was looking for, but that I can see that.
Random.
Bingo. Good, Morgan. It's got to be random, and it's got to be a large sample. Right? Large sample. Very good. Okay? All right, so as we do this, let me give you a quick design. I think this will help as we kind of wrap up section 3.2. Hopefully you got this here. I'm going to erase parts of this because I think this will be, I want to make sure I get that there. Okay, so right here we have 100 students, right? And because we want to come back to this up here, we want to take it from observational to an experimental, right? 100 students, we randomly assign. What would happen when we randomly assign? What would we do with it?
Put them in groups.
There you are. So what would we do with one group?
Label it group A.
Good. We'll label it A, and the second one we can label B, where A is what? For the context of this up here with online and reviewed.
A is the stats medic
Yeah, so we'll just say online. Good. And B would be
book.
the book. Nice. Okay. So then what happens after A and B? What do we do then?
Take the average score, right?
So, yeah, that's exact. One thing that I'm going to just include in there, I like that. We're going to put the treatment in, right? And have them actually do the treatment. And then what will we do at the end?
You record them.
Record and compare. Good. Record and compare. Nice. Okay. I know I'm writing fast here, but hopefully you see that. So the average that we would get here on the AP score would be a 4.3 here and a 3.8 here. Okay. All right. Is this an experiment? Yes, because we have a treatment, right? So what is the difference between an experiment and observational? An experiment has a treatment. And what's an observational study? I know we know it, but just...
You're just like looking at someone else, or someone else is like carrying it out, and you're just observing like the results and stuff.
Yeah, I literally have no control other than just observing what's going on, right? Now, once I get control of the situation and I implement that, now we're talking about an experiment, right? Does anyone have an experiment with their study that's due Friday? Y'all are all observational? You know that it was required that it was supposed to be an experiment for Friday? I'm messing with you.
Fail us all, Coach Jay. See what happens.
See what happens?
Fail us all.
That was a
You might be saying free Coach J after that. We might be saying free Coach J. But no, yeah, it would be a treatment, would be an experiment, okay? But no, that was not required. Not required, all right? What's that? Did you go like this to me?
No. I was trying that.
What is the...
Christmas
Yes.
presents?
Morgan.
Morgan. Max.
Okay, so
He
this
knows
is an
Santa.
experiment because
They
there's
put
a
a
treatment,
bad word for you.
but it can't prove causation because there wasn't a control.
I would say that you can have a control group here. There's not really a control group on this, but since we're implementing a treatment, that's the definition of an experiment. Once we move in the experimental realm, at that point, the key is randomly assigning, right? I did the randomly assigning into two groups. I've got control over the treatments that we're using. I can have cause and effect here.
Oh, okay.
That is possible. Because the random assignment takes away the lurking variables to allow me to say causation. Does that make sense? That's a great question. All right, so what is the advantage of an experiment over an observation? We already said it.
Control.
Well, what's the advantage of control? It shows what?
Shows causation.
Yeah, causation. Nice. That's the huge thing. All right, different than conclusion. So observational is more of a conclusion. Experiments showing causation. Awesome. Okay, last thing, and then we'll go from here. Here's the biggest thing. Blocking is the same thing as stratifying, except what?
It's experimental.
An experiment. Exactly. Stratified is more observational, but block is more experimental. Same idea. So if I were to take a block from here, okay, and we were to say, you know what, I think I could randomly assign, but before I randomly assign, I'm going to divide these up into male and female. What you would have is this. You would have 100 students, and I would have male and female. Is that random?
No.
No, that's not random, okay? You're either a male or female. But this right here is what I call my block. So before I randomly assign, I have my males and my females. From here, what do I do?
Take a sample of
Yep, I randomly assign. I probably should go back. Let me say this. So what I would do is randomly assign. So we'll say random assignment into two groups. What groups are they?
A and B.
A and B, right? A and B, and then what do I do at the end? Once I do the treatment,
Then you compare.
compare and record. Good. So compare, I'll just put compare, but you get it. And then down here, we're going to compare down here. Now, it looks just like it did up here, except what?
So
Except it's blocked in
Between
between
male and female, okay? But at that point, you're really having, once I block, I've got two experiments. I don't want to say two because it's the same thing, but kind of two experiments going on with two different groups once I block it, all right? Questions on this? Huge thing. Don't confuse stratified with block, okay? Huge concept for the AP exam. All right, Unit 3. Yeah, not Chapter 3, Unit 3. How do we feel? Maddie, you got something?
So could you go over the difference between block design and matched pairs design?
Yeah, great question. So matched pairs, I'm going to stick with my definition. The big thing with matched pairs is that there is no randomness. I can randomly select people, okay? However, once I randomly select people, I am stating normally, traditionally, they're before and they're after. Got me? So what I mean on this is a block is different because block is at the very beginning. Instead of randomly assigning first, I'm coming and saying there's something that's in common that I want to make to where there's two things going on, right? And then once I do that, then I run my experiment. Whereas a matched pair, I always think of the before and after. My pretest, right? I take my pretest and I take my post-test. I compare the results. And then afterwards, once I compare the results, I'll have some sort of difference that's there, right? And then all of the differences of the people that I select, that's what I use in terms of my significance test that's there. Traditionally, in matched pairs, I have not seen a whole lot of matched pairs. And I don't know this for a fact, but I don't see a whole lot of experimental designs with matched pairs. Traditionally, it's more of an observational thing, if that makes sense. I don't know that 100%, but I've seen that. That's traditionally what I've seen. Like observing a pre, observing a post-test, and then comparing that with everybody within the group. Cool. Does that help a little bit? Good stuff. Okay, so I want you to do this. On the FRQ, that's here, right below the, I don't think that's the one I'm looking for. Right here we go. Right below the 10 that you just did, I want you to do the FRQ number 1. This was off 2017, and I want you to do it amongst your group. Right now, you've got the points that are there. Whatever you get on this FRQ between a 1 or 4, you'll get those points on your board for that, okay? So you're going to answer this among your group. We'll show the results and go from there. Right now, you have 12 minutes. Some people ask me, Coach, could I sit outside real quick for 12 minutes and do that? Perfect, that's fine. Fine by me. All I'm asking is just don't go over to the swings. You have 12 minutes, though, and then we'll come back and then grade it. Sound good?
Maybe some water real quick.
Yes, you may. All right, I'm giving you 14. Once the buzzer goes off, I'll bring us together, okay?
So as length goes up, length from nose to tip of the tail goes up, weight goes up.
Oh, there we are.
Alright, next part, linear is the
We can.
My group go.
That's fine.
I could just show you all the answers right now.
Please show them the answers, please. I want them to win. You guys need to win.
James. We might need to change our name.
I forgot you're not in the group.
Yeah, I think I go for a name change because James is
James is
free.
freed already.
Freed.
Freed already.
You
James,
just say
James
yeah.
has
As
risen.
long as it doesn't have
Ohio
Buckeyes in it, I'm good.
State
James
University.
is not
If it
dead.
has Buckeyes in it,
James
you'll
is
fail
not
both
dead.
this and the class.
Ohio State
James is not
University.
dead.
Yeah, you
James is not
James
dead.
is not dead.
James isn't sick anymore.
James is risen.
James-
took his
James
Flintstone
feels
gun.
better.
Wait, I think we want to
Yeah.
shift the name your name.
James
Name the
feels
second
better.
kid.
James feels
Name the second.
Name the second child. This is Who's playing for you?
We get to pick up for the second time.
Buckeye Johnson.
And who they
Buck Johnson.
Buck.
We also get to pick out their future husband.
Oh no.
Oh, and
We should do a shot. If you hit the shot, I
If you
name
hit-
my next kid because
Buck.
my wife's pregnant. Buck, girl or boy?
Yikes. You're a girl named Buck.
Ooh. Buck.
You're setting yourself up.
You better be pretty big, built, strong.
You've seen my first daughter. It's not her. You've seen me. You know.
So yeah. I mean, basically meaning like the data resembles so sorry. Because we need to interpret the meaning of the slope. So
Okay, so as
so f for each.
for each 16.46.
Okay, so for each. Yeah, so for each x, for each meter, I got the meters. So for each meter, each increase length, each meter increase of x.
For each
Check out
meter,
the lane.
for each 1 meter length increase, the weight of the gray wolf goes up
They
to
said.
35.
From nose to tail.
Emily, Michael, and Ella, do y'all want to get chairs and just sit in the shade right here outside?
Weight
Okay.
Increase.
I just see you trying to.
Yeah.
increases by 35.02 pounds. Or kilograms.
Okay.
Kilograms.
Kilograms? I don't know why I wrote down. That's what you told me, kilograms. Okay. Alright, so this is, we just pull our calculator at this point. Oh no, what was the weight of the wolf? Okay, so we should be able to tell. So, well, we'd be able to tell from the LSRL anyways. It has a length of 1.4 meters, which we should be able to plug in.
What kind of function do you use?
You don't need a function. We would just be able to plug it right into the calculator, to the equation, the LSRL. 35.02 times 3.4 minus 16.46. So the residual is negative. So it's actual minus predicted is the residual. So this is the actual. This
No,
is
that's the actual.
this is the predicted. This is the predicted. So it's something minus this equals.
Would be 35.02 minus that? Or no?
We're looking for so it's not negative 9.7. So it's actual minus predicted. This is the
That's the predicted
Predicted.
of what?
the predicted weight for a wolf that is 1.4 meters long. So it's actual minus 32.57 equals negative 9.5, negative 9.67.
Yeah.
So we would just need to add,
You
we just subtract that. We're adding this to this. We're subtracting 9.67 from this.
Alright.
So-
add.
Well, we're adding it to
Yes,
this.
okay,
We're adding a positive. So A equals, so the actual weight is 22.898 kilograms. That should be the actual weight. That makes sense. That should be good.
So that. Are y'all gonna be done in 6 minutes?
We're done.
Yeah,
Y'all are done already?
This one.
Trying to see. Do you think there's a second one? Forgot. I have a second one there. I forgot which one it was though. It's a little different. That's the construct and interpret one. Oh no, never mind. A little different. Let me go this one. You could talk to the next one, which is number 4, real quick. We'll probably get to that a little bit later. You can maybe start with that answer.
You showing them answers in your coach day?
Yeah.
You know it.
Uh-huh.
OIU You start looking.
What should make our name then?
We do need a team name.
Oh, the James.
So James, what are your team?
Here, I'll help you come up with a team name really
Oh,
quick.
you'll help us. Like,
Let me
by
brain-
looking- by
let me
looking
just
straight-
brainstorm
by looking
about
straight
team
at our
names.
answers.
James is not dead. He is surely alive.
I was about to say that.
I was saying nicknames for Michigan.
Yeah, that's what we need.
These are these freshmen.
Refer to as the game.
Yeah, we need. Let's see.
Michigan leads the all-time series. 58-49.
We're looking up a good team name. We gotta have one.
The largest victory was 86-0 in 1902.
86-0.
Michigan won.
In what year?
1902.
What sport?
Back in
When
my
football
day.
was fake.
Oh, that was in like Georgia Tech
So
in
that's when
19.
football
Georgia
was-
Tech versus
Yeah.
Cumberland in
Like
1910.
tough.
Yeah.
I bet you heard about that game. The Georgia Tech Cumberland
Current
game.
win streak
Yes.
is Ohio State.
Oh,
has
it's bad.
6
What was it?
wins.
200 something? 220, 210 something to 0.
Oh, Georgia Tech?
Cumberland Georgia Tech game.
Yeah, it's you know why it was like that? It's because
The initial
so
was like-
Georgia Tech played Cumberland, and then the
Look at
next
that.
and Cumberland like upset them.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, next year they just kept
Was
running up the
mad.
score.
And the next year, Cumberland like banished their football team or something like that.
Yeah.
They didn't have a football team anymore, so the baseball team played for the football team.
I had not heard that the baseball team playing, but
That's
I
a
remember
good
them.
story.
I'm like pretty sure that's why.
It's something like that.
That's a good story.
Final block day and AP statistics.
Should we have block? So after the seniors leave, do we have block days still? Or
Let's
Wednesday is
I think
the
they
Friday.
have it in regular
Hey,
schedule.
Let's be the
Wednesday is the Friday.
Wolverinees.
the Wolverine? I don't think you can put that on a trophy.
There was one I can't even say right now. I'm so
It's not a
embarrassed
trophy?
that it was not on the trophy, but I almost put it on the trophy and went like very because for me I don't think about stuff like that, and I just kept saying the word, and it was not. They were trying to get me, and they ended up winning, and I was gonna put the name on the trophy, and they were like someone came to me and said don't do that.
You can spell it if you want.
I'll tell you all later. I'll tell you all later. It was.
We can put the score of this year's game.
Did y'all get it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, y'all want to start talking over the second one? We might not get to it today, but we'll probably get to it later on. Just like how you did this. That FRQ is from 2017 too. Did y'all feel good on that one?
We use the
I only
use
have
French's
a
jacket
question
as an
for
eraser.
linear.
Which one?
Linear. How do you interpret linear here?
It says like explain the what does it meant.
Oh, I know you can like put.
Trying to see here for the linear part.
Good new pen.
Or we could do.
We changed our team name
We did.
for now.
Yeah, our team name has changed for now.
We don't know what we're gonna put it as yet. The Wolverinees.
So what would what would linear mean?
Listen.
Very loose. It's very loose with what they're wanting. Does that make sense?
So, like, there's a pattern?
What is? What's your?
This is not something very specific that they're looking for.
Maybe,
Does that make sense? It's kind of a loose thing that they want. They give me a couple of different things. You'll see it in a second. A couple of different things
Now
that they
we'll
would
go on the
accept.
trophy. Tell the trophy.
That's our new name. Alright.
And this is a
Losers.
That's your new name.
No.
Check it out.
Alright,
You can check it out.
And I feel like all the names on that trophy are like there to diss me. The Narnians.
Where?
Crazy.
Golden
Have y'all ever seen The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe?
Yes, yes.
Remember
seen
the
Y'all know Mr.
Black
Thomas
Pond,
then,
Michigan
right?
State versus Michigan?
Everyone
We
thinks
need to
that
put
Yeah,
that dude on
actually,
there. Remember
Actually,
Oh,
when
it's
I
like-
yeah.
yeah, when I
Oh,
look at the
look
poster
at
again,
Michigan fan.
The Michigan.
Sad Michigan
this
fan.
face
Yeah.
is
it does. I do. I'll be honest.
That's
I'll
what
be
they did.
honest.
Oh.
No.
You actually
Tosh, like,
act
that's
like
the
when
one.
that came out, he said,
Did I?
We'll competition.
No, God.
He's like, looks like a
I look
kid.
very similar.
And, like, it's
I
all
tell
a
people
bunch
I
of
do.
people who are like,
You know that
Yeah.
that right there is the
No one.
someone who sculpted that.
Coach Jay, can you put a picture on the trophy?
It's got to be.
Not yet.
What's the picture?
Hello.
Oh, no.
Oh my word. If you could get, I can't. That was the worst day of my life. That was the worst day of my life. You remember that when that was, right?
Oh man,
Michigan State.
Yeah, Michigan State, the block punt.
Hey, V, and are y'all ready? Working already? That's my second word.
Usually the surrender cobras. I don't know.
Are y'all ready?
Wow.
Let's do it. Let's get in here.
That's what I think.
No, I don't like.
His name is Chris Baldwin. Chris Baldwin fan club.
Messed up. Messed up.
We can put it.
Right now our team is 31 to 20.
No, we should do 27, 23.
It's awful.
We can put anything from last 6 years there.
Yeah, we put anyone in there.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all. Being a Michigan fan's tough right now. It is very tough. And I think the worst thing is we thought we had hope with Harbaugh, and it's just not happening right now. Okay, as we go, you cannot change your answers.
Yeah, did you guys?
I did.
All right. In fact, do this. Switch it with another group. Switch it with another group.
Actually, I like that. All right, we're gonna take the Virginia
We were
group.
from the desk, dude.
Yeah,
Switch it with another group there.
What else do we name? What else do we name?
What are you?
Or should we just do our own?
31 minus 20. 31
Do you
plus.
trust us?
That's our name.
I don't. I thought I did, but now I don't.
I trust some of us.
Yeah.
Some of y'all I do.
Michigan game.
I don't trust everybody.
We're 31 20.
I don't trust y'all.
Oh.
That's awful. Thanks, guys.
Oh.
Appreciate y'all.
That's bad.
Okay, hey, let's do this. On that note.
It was killed like a dude.
All right, as we go through this, if you could just please make sure you grade it. This right here, this next part that I'm gonna do seems as though it is the most irrelevant thing because you just done it. Now it's like, well, grading it, it's either right or wrong. But it's really actually a big deal in seeing how they grade it, and then also what are the things that they're looking for. Okay. All right, let's talk about linear first. These are examples of acceptable responses. If you did one of these, just put a check mark. If you didn't, put an X there. An acceptable response is, as length increase, so does weight. Longer wolves weigh more. Or the points on the graph go up as you move from left to right. Okay? Now, if you said something, this is unacceptable. As length goes up, weight changes. Both length and weight get bigger. The correlation is greater than 0. If you said something like that, that is not appropriate and you will not receive credit for that. Cool? All right, number 2. Any questions on that one?
Yeah.
Cool beans. Number 2, examples of an acceptable response as it relates to slope. The points generally follow a straight line. The relationship between x and y is straight. Length and weight have a constant slope. If you said something along those lines, give yourself a check. If you said something that's unacceptable, the points all line up. You can draw a straight line through the points. There's a positive correlation. Every increase in x yields a 35.02 increase in y. Those would be unacceptable answers. Cool? Questions on that? Maddie?
Oh wait, not this one. Sorry, I was.
Okay, so now for a line, that's what they're looking for here. You needed to say observed values are close to predicted values, or deviations from the LSRL are small, or the correlation coefficient is close to 1. That would be an acceptable response in terms of this section. Unacceptable would be all the points are close together, the scatter point plots are clustered together, there's a high positive correlation. Those are unacceptable answers. Maddie?
Except the plots, the points closely follow the LSRL, and there's not a lot of varying through the line.
I will take that because that's referring to deviations. Nice. Ella?
What about I said the relationship between weight and length is clear to see.
Is clear to see?
Like, yeah, strong. Like, can see the relationship.
I would say that that's probably going to need to be bolstered to get credit on that one. That's what I would say. I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying for the AP, they would need a little bit more. Explain that. What does that mean? You know what I'm saying? You could talk about, similar to what Maddie was saying, how these deviations, talk about the deviations from those least squared regression lines, how they are smaller, or something along the lines of that they're closer together. Therefore, you can talk about the residual is low in terms of the error from the actual to the predicted. Actual minus predicted, that's fine too, but I think we need a little bit more on that. Also, the fourth thing is you need to include context one place out of those 3. Okay? All right, so out of those 4 things, If you got 3 out of the 4, that's a P. If you got 4 out of 4, that's an E. And if you got anything else, 2 out of 4 or anything less, you would get an I on that. Okay. All right, number 2, or part B rather. You would get an essentially correct if the response includes 3 components. So check them off as I go. The correct value of 30.5.02 must be stated that is the slope. That's number 1. Number 2, an interpretation, it must say something that states that an increase of a specific amount of weight for each unit increase in length. So as 35.02 in weight increases, we would expect that the increase in length would be 1, whatever the.
What if I said that, but like flipped?
You said it flipped?
Like,
Did I
you
say
said
that
it-
right?
I said that because X is the weight, or no, X is the length. So I said for every 1 meter in increase in length from nose to tip of tail, the weight is expected to increase by 35.02 kilograms.
I love it. I love that. It's perfect.
Oh,
Yeah, you flip flop those, that's fine. You said it, I just said it opposite, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Number 3, you must indicate, big word, this is huge. I see this all over the AP exam and grading. You must use on average or predicted weight somewhere. Okay, if you did that, check it off, you're good to go. If you got all 3 of those, that's an E. If you got 2 out of the 3, that's a P. And now we're, anything else than that would be an I. Okay, last section. All right, you would get an E if the response includes the following 2 components. A correct computation for the predicted value of 32.568 kilograms, okay? Because it's actual minus predicted equals residual. All right, do we all get that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And then second is you must have a correct computation for the actual weight of 22.9 kilograms using the given residual and the predicted value, okay? Here they did not say that you had to have context, so you did not have to talk about the context there. But you must have shown, I'm asking, or I'm not for sure on this, but I think you must show work for both of these. If you did not, that's okay for today, but please show it on the AP exam. There, okay? If you did one or the other, if you did predicted minus actual, that would be P for partially correct. If the response provides an incorrect value for the predicted weight, but then uses that value correctly to determine the actual weight, you could have gotten a P on that. Oh yeah, and this is the big thing. If you did not, this is where I will come in. You did not give sufficient information to determine how it was calculated, you would only get a P. That's where the work comes into play. Okay? So based on that, give yourself an E, P, or I. If you got 3 E's, that's a 4.
We get 3.
If you got an E, and a P, that's a 3. If you got an EPP or I think it's let me just show. I think it's down below here. Go through. There we are. Perfect. Those are the possibilities. Max, you may. Go ahead. All right, once you get that score, multiply that by 2 and put your score right next to your there. You can update the scoreboard back behind me.
Yeah.
We are kind of nice.
7.6. 21.
Does anyone have a question on what they got there? What'd y'all get, Gabby? A 2 there? It's perfect. Yeah, that's more like standard. You'll notice that these 2 are like, this is like perfect. This is like, you did really well. This is like, okay, this is about standard, what we want to go for. And then down below 1 is still decent, 0's not good.
We got 8 on that.
Chad,
Good.
Chad, would you get 1?
Can we put the raw score or time it?
Let's do the raw score. So add that to the total right now, and then you'll Place that
by 2, you said?
multiply that by 2. So you could get up to 8. These teams,
Sure
Skittles,
you
have
did.
42 points.
Sure you
Wait, what?
Sure you
Wait.
did.
Oh, they, wait, what?
Skittles has 8, I think, right?
Yeah.
They had 8.
No, 6.
You
You gotta
got.
multiply.
You got to be joshing right now. You just have.
Okay.
I was gonna say 42 points.
We work diligently.
We were pretty diligently.
We don't write it down.
All right, here's what I'm going to tell you as we go through this today. I am not going to get through all of Chapter 4. I anticipated that as we went through these units, that this was like a projected schedule. I am guessing that Chapter 7, which if you look at Chapter 7, that's every significance test that we have this year, is all in Chapter 7. That one is probably going to end up being podcasted, or we'll do a study session separate when you all aren't here in school, okay? So just a heads up on that as we go through. It's very important that we hit on this stuff before and not skip it, but just a heads up as we go through there, okay? All right, y'all's favorite topic, section 4.1, probability, okay? Favorite topic? Probably your least favorite, right?
It was
If they-
probability 4.1.
4.1, yeah. It's probably the toughest thing on the AP exam. But there's some things that we just need to get down and make sure we understand as we look at probability. The first thing is this, mutually exclusive, okay? Now, when we think of mutually exclusive, when we do not have something that's mutually exclusive, we use the following definition, okay? The probability of A or B is equal to the probability of A plus probability of B minus the probability of A and B. Now, just real quick, or, when we think of or, we think of adding. Now, could someone give me mutually exclusive? What does that even mean? What we remember from that? Morgan?
I think of the circles where they're like completely separate, right? Like they can't happen at the same time.
That's exactly right. And can you give me an event that may be mutually exclusive? Hey. Gender's a good
Like-
one. Yeah.
Boy and something pregnancy.
Like that. This is
You said
true.
boy
Unless
pregnancy.
you're a seahorse, right? Isn't a seahorse? It's not. There's
Boy
something-
and age you get pregnant.
That's exactly right. Completely mutually
What kind of
exclusive.
boys do you know that get pregnant?
I'm saying that's mutually exclusive.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly right. Very good, Morgan. That's exactly right. Remember this, two things that are related here. When we think of something that is, if we say yes, they are mutually exclusive, we have number one definition and number two definition. These two go together. The only difference is you'll notice there is no probability of A and B, because just like Morgan said, when we think of the Venn diagram, the circles never touch, because there's no way that a guy can be pregnant. I don't want to say completely, because I'm sure there's something out there. But, and I'm not going there. But when you think about it, they're completely mutually exclusive. Okay? That just got intense in a hurry. But that would be the probability of A and B. So the intersection, where both of them occur, is 0 when it's mutually exclusive. Okay? Questions on that? Rockin'. The next thing we have is we have this thing called independence, which gave us fits, if you remember. Gave me fits, if you remember that way back when. What is independence?
When the probability of one event happening does not affect the probability of another event.
Bingo. You said it. It's exactly right. Good, Maddie. So when one event does not impact another event. Okay? So you'll see the one when it's no, the one I circled on the right side, the probability of A and B. Remember A and is multiplying, traditionally multiplying. Okay? So the probability of A and B is equal to the probability of A times the probability of B. What does that mean? Given that A has occurred. Good, Matt. That's exactly right. So that's what, that would be something that's not independent. Okay? That means that in this case, the probability of B is dependent upon what happened with A. Okay? Now, what if I say that yes, they are independent? What we have then is we exchange the probability of B given A to probability of B. Why can I do that?
Because they're independent.
Because they're independent.
Gosh dang.
Nicely done. Yeah. Because the probability of B given that A has occurred is the same, and because the probability of B has no impact on what happened with A. That's what the definition of independence is. Word right there. Nicely done. Ella?
B
On the third bed.
A
On the
is that
TV.
B given to A or A given to B?
This is the probability of B given that A occurred. Does that make sense? So I kind of read it like how you read it is exactly how it's listed. So the probability of B given that A occurred is what we found.
Can you interpret that?
So if I have, here we are.
10 Granny Smith apples.
Remember, if I were to select the probability of B given that A occurred, right? And I was saying, what is the probability of selecting a red card? Okay? And this right here was the probability of selecting a 7. Okay? In this instance, we have the probability of selecting a red card, 1/2, times the probability of, depending upon what happened over here with the first one, right? If I selected a red card, what is the probability of selecting a 7 given that I had selected a red card? Does that make sense? So like if I did, let's say I did get a red card, right? The fact that the first one was red would have an impact on selecting a 7 on my second card because it's already been taken. Now what if I put that back in that case? Now all of a sudden I move towards independence because you've selected a red card, right? But it has no impact on what would happen as on the second one because it's been put back.
You have to shuffle it for that to work. Right? You can't just like, there you go.
There you are, right there. Okay. All right, does that make sense? Morgan, no, go ahead.
Like you get that? Is it just like I feel like the problem is using the word given just because like they're like probably taught it means something else. Yeah, like I remember this. Like I feel like it's just like they're just getting confused because like you learn a different meaning for given.
Can you try
It's
after,
just like
maybe after.
it's just like what's the probability of B considering that the event of A has already happened?
Or like
Get that?
So, like,
So
so-
we're focused on B.
Yeah.
So we understand already that A has already happened. Like it's just understood.
So if event A has happened, what's the probability of it?
Man, good call. Morgan.
Thank you.
Good call.
That was rocking.
Right?
That was rocking.
The ticket.
That's a ticket.
That ticket.
Is that a ticket?
That's a
That
ticket.
is a
That's a
couple of
ticket.
them.
Actually,
Yeah, that really is a ticket.
That's a ticket to Ella, right?
Yeah.
I'll give one to Ella too.
That
That was a good question. Good question.
Jen gets one this week.
Do I get one for showing up, Christian?
No, James get billed out with his tickets.
I don't know if I can laugh at that.
James
Right?
Jones' bill was 10
If
tickets.
I'm laughing, you can laugh at it.
Okay, I got you. Okay, this next one, I probably will say this is one of the tougher ones. The probability, well, now we're talking about probability, but the chances of you getting one like this is very likely on the AP exam, okay? And I think it's important to not focus too much about the formulas. I like what they said. I was researching a little bit. What I like that some teachers were talking about, focusing not on the formulas, but more focusing on the context, and then if needing the formula, then going to it as a last resort, okay? So what I mean by that is, here's the problem we'll look at, and then we'll go to the next one. Stella's Lounge only sells burgers and sandwiches. Each comes with chips, or for $1 more, it can be served with fries. The probability that a randomly selected customer orders a burger is what? 60%. So how I like to determine that is just say P of burger equals what? 0.6, I'm sorry. Yes. 0.6. Okay? All right, so let's keep going. 70% of the time they will get fries. Oh, if they order a burger, 70% of the time they will get fries, right? So this is kind of what we just talked about. Since they ordered a burger, what is the probability of getting fries? So we would say probability of fries given or considering that they selected a burger. Does that make sense, Ella, on that? So we would say that that probability is 0.70. Okay? Now the next thing is it says the probability of getting fries given that they, or considering that they ordered a sandwich would be what? 0.45. So we've got these three that they've listed right here. The best thing to do is draw a diagram. I find that a diagram is money. You can draw that out. It's something that's really beneficial and helpful. So I'm either going to get a burger or a sandwich, and with that, I'll either get fries or chips. Okay? All right, Matthew, what's up? Gotcha. All right, so what is the probability of selecting a burger here? 0.6. Good. So we're going to put 0.6 here for burgers, which means, what is my probability of selecting a sandwich? 0.4.
5, right?
I think just 0.4. Over here, the probability of fries given or considering that I had a sandwich right here, the probability of getting fries given that that's occurred would be what? Yep, this is 0.45, which means what's the probability of getting chips noting that they ordered a sandwich? There you are, 0.55. Look up here on the fries to burgers. Fries given that burgers occurred, what would I get?
0.7,
0.7.
0.3.
So this would be 0.7 up here, and this would be 0.3 down for chips there. Okay? Now, here's the question. What is the probability of getting a burger and fries? 0.6 times 0.7, which is 0.42. That's going to be on the outside. I'm going to say that that is when I select both, right? So what about burger and chips?
0.88.
0.18. Sandwich and fries?
0.45.
Well, yeah, but it's 0.5 times 0.4.
0.45.
0.18? Here you are. Here you are, Ella. I like it. And then the last one? 0.4 times 0.55?
0.42.
0.22. Good. What do I know about all of these? What should those add up to?
0.1.
1. If you didn't, something went wrong. Okay? Now, before I do anything, I've done my diagram. I put it in context. It looks good. Now, go to this. What's the probability of ordering a sandwich and fries?
0.18.
Yeah, so sandwich and fries would be 0.18, right? So we're just going to put that there.
Wait, so didn't we already say that it's 0.45 for getting fries with a sandwich on that little line?
Yeah.
Isn't, or what does that mean? The 0.45.
That's the probability of getting fries given that you've
Given.
already gotten a sandwich.
Okay.
If I said this, exchange that for and,
Okay.
Yeah.
then that would be on the outside.
Okay.
Cool? When I say given or considering that, then at that point, then we're gonna we're just focused on this has happened. What's the probability of getting
I'm
fries?
feeling you, Judge. I got you.
Gotcha. Yeah. Joach? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Right on, I think. So what's the probability of getting fries?
This fries.
0.6.
Oh, that's 0.60.
0.6 because look, right here we have sandwiches and fries. We have burgers and fries. So 0.42 plus 0.18 is 0.6. Good. So that would be 0.60 of just getting fries. What is the probability of getting a sandwich given they order fries?
0.18 over 0.6.
Correct. Great job, Ella. Do you know how we did that? Maddie, you're kind of looking like a little
I
bit.
don't know. How did we get all of them?
Say-
How do we do 1/3 29?
Back up, Morgan. You want me to back up?
Yeah, you just have to write it down and I can figure it out.
Okay, so did you get how I got these over here?
Yes.
Is that right? So if I got a sandwich and fries, that means that a sandwich and fries occurred. That'd be 0.18, right?
Okay. Yeah.
For just fries, that means I could have burger and fries or sandwich and fries, right? So I take 0.42 and say, okay, it could be here, 0.42 or 0.18.
Okay.
Does that make sense on that? Now the tough one is a sandwich given they order fries. Well, what are the ones that have given that they ordered fries? Well, the given was from the 0.6, right? So we're focusing just on the fries part, right? So that would be on our the bottom there. So out of the 0.6 of all the fries the probability of ordering fries, to order a sandwich would be what? A sandwich and fries would be what? 0.18. So 0.18 divided by 0.60, we get 0.30. Okay. Morgan, does that make
Yes.
some sense there? Rocket, do you see how this is better? I like this better when I just simply write it down. I don't even use any formulas. Could I do it with this up here?
Yes.
Yes, it's just going to be tough. I think that's easier. Okay? Just easier to see. Okay.
25 or 30?
Say that again. I'm
You
sorry.
got 25.
I believe it's 30. Could I do crash course real quick? Like fast? Okay. So this last one is bins, binary, right? Our binomial stuff. Okay. This is probably just because we didn't hit on it as hard. Binomial is not as much a part of the AP exam, but it is a part. Okay, so just keep in mind. Remember, to be binary, we have to have bins, right? So it must be something that's binary. Give me an example of something that's binary.
Do you watch Netflix? Yes or no?
Okay. Watch Netflix. Good. Do you watch Netflix, yes or no? Boom, it's either yes or no answer. That is binary. Independent, we know what independent means, right? What goes with independence? Just a heads up. 10% condition if the event is not independent. What's N?
Set number of. So it'd be like yes. It's either yes or no.
Yes or no, I like that. I like that. It's something that's set in place. And what I mean by that too, it's related to S. Well, kind of, sort of. This means like if I shoot free throws, if I say I'm shooting 100, right? So it's a set number. So let's say 100 free throws. Focusing on the set number 100, okay? And then the S is the same probability each time, okay? Now, the Netflix thing may or may not be, depending, right? Because I don't know if the probability is the same for someone. Well, I guess it could be 50-50, right?
Yeah.
I guess we could. But let's say someone has a free throw percentage of 80%. The probability is expected to be the same, okay? So it's got to be the same probability. But that's how we would attack with bins there, okay? Now, as we notice the shape, we note that n times p is greater than or equal to 10, and the failure of n times 1 minus p is greater than or equal to 10. And if this kind of goes through, what does this tell me? What would the shape be? Approximately normal. There you are.
There it is.
Approximately normal. Rocking. Okay? The center is the mean, which is n times p. Okay? So if I looked at 80 free throws out of 100, 100 would be my n, and what would be my probability? 0.8, right? So the probability point would be 0.8.
The mean at the top is 85. You said they're an 85% shooter.
Yeah.
So you would assume.
Oh, okay, I looked over here. You're right. This is what, so we've used 0.85. Y'all are right. Good stuff. So my mean would be 85. Okay? Good stuff. Okay. The spread would be n times p times 1 minus p, and taking the square root of that. Would you trust me that this was 3.57?
Yeah.
That would be 3.57 as my spread. But that would be what we would use for our binomial there. Okay? All right, last thing, and then I'm done. We have two different things. We always use normal CDF. Why do we not use normal PDF?
PDF is just one.
One value. Can I have one value in a normal distribution graph?
No.
No, it's with probability is 0 for that, right? But with binomial, you can possibly have one single value because it's not continuous, it is discrete. You remember that word? It's set. Okay? So as we look at this, what is the probability of x being equal to 80? Notice that is PDF, okay? Now, a couple things, and then, again, I know we're headed towards being done. When you write this and you write binom PDF, 100 represents the set number, the p represents the probability, and 80 is the total amount out of the 100 that we're trying to check, okay? So note this. You can write that on the AP exam, but you must put the notations. If you don't put the notations, you get 0 credit, okay? So you must put the notations if you use any of the calculator functions that's there.
What is the 80?
The 80 represents, because we're trying to find 80 free throws out of 100. Got me? The fact that it's 80 out of 100, 100 represents the set number of n. The probability of each free throw occurring would be 85%. And then 80 represents the exact amount that we want to find in terms of the free throws out of 100.
Why on the right side 79?
Okay, this is different, right? So over here, this is saying what is the probability that our value will be greater than or equal to 80, right? But remember that when we do a number line, when I do CDF, it's that number or anything less than that number. Got me? So if I want to find 80 and anything less than 80, I can't use 80. I've got to use 79. And then once I find the area to the left, because that's what we use with CDF, I then take 1 minus that, right, to find what that value would be.
So when we do CDF, it includes the number itself and all the numbers that smaller.
Yes. Remember with normal CDF, right? it's always
Like, charge out the population.
when we do our z-score, right? And I find that probability, it's always to the left of that value. With CDF, it is always to the left of it. So if I'm trying to find greater than, I'm going to take this, once I plug this in, and do 1 minus the binomial CDF. And when I do that, I end up getting a value. I actually didn't even write down the value.
And then 80, 96.
I didn't even write down the value, but once you would do that, you would get the specific value for that one there.
No,
Okay?
I think 94.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Maybe Westbrook is gonna be 94.
Westbrook should be a 94. Well, George should be
So
89.
the N is
He should be a
how
90.
many
Yeah,
times
that's
you've
what I'm
been doing it.
And 70 is a 93.
If you are
I
just
see.
So I'm
doing
also
50
91, I think.
the
Or
N is
92.
50.
We're small.
I think it's 91 and 92.
And if I said, what is the probability out of those 50 of hitting exactly 40? Right?
91.
We'd use binomial PDF.
96.
50 would go here, and 40 would go here.
Gotcha.
But if I said 40 or greater than 40, I would do 39 or anything less than 39 of CDF, binomial CDF, and then 1 minus that value.